and I will be finishing up tomorrow after this, and I will be covering this on another platform, and I will let you know tomorrow which platform I will be going live on to cover the sexual ethics policy again. And I am, and for those of you who are watching me for the first time, my father's name was John Dowden. He was employed under the Texas Annual Conference Administration of the United Methodist Denomination in Houston, Texas, and placed on assignment at various United Methodist churches within the Texas Annual Conference. My father was a child molester, and my father passed away in 2012, and my mother passed away in 2018. In 2017, I obtained a recorded conversation of my mother admitting to drugging me so that I would not know that my father was molesting me. She was very proud to admit that because she knew what she had gotten away with, and she did not realize I was recording her, and she did not think that anybody would ever believe me. But honestly, I really don't care who believes me and who doesn't. I was there, and I know what happened, and it has stayed with me for many years. I also have thousands of recorded conversations on 2 different apps. And I am willing to share those recorded conversations to anyone, including the Texas Annual Conference, that wants access to those recorded conversations. The significance about these recorded conversations is that they tell a story about what I went through, and it confirms what I have been saying. I also, in 2019, was forced to visit my kids at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church for supervised visitation run by the Domestic Relations Office of Harris County. I had received an email out of the blue, and the Texas Annual Conference of the United Methodist Denomination failed to disclose with the Domestic Relations Office, along with visiting parents and custodial parents, that the Texas Annual Conference has a history of employing clergy who were capable of sexually assaulting minors. And I am a survivor of sexual assault by my father, who was an employed clergy under the Texas Annual Conference Administration, which is the same administration that is over St. Stephen's United Methodist Church in Houston, Texas on West 43rd Street, where I had to visit my kids for supervised visitation. I understand I did deserve to be punished for exposing and not being compliant with sexual assault as a minor. And I do understand that clearly the Texas Annual Conference must have felt that I deserved that. And it is quite obvious that the Texas Annual Conference also did not have a problem with a sexual assault survivor of one of their clergy enduring sexual harassment during the visitation of her children at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church. So it's quite obvious to me that I must have deserved to be sexually harassed in front of my children and exploited in front of my children without my consent. But even though I understand that it's an unpopular opinion, I don't think that it was appropriate for my sons to have to witness their mother be exploited and sexually harassed at a United Methodist church. However, I understand that is, my opinion is irrelevant. Also, speaking of irrelevant, Gwen Adams, who is in charge of the supervised visitation with the Domestic Relations Office of Harris County informed me that any allegations of abuse from me are just hearsay, are not to be taken seriously. However, if they come from somebody else, they are to be taken serious. So this was after I had reached out to the Texas Annual Conference to notify them what was going on with the supervised visitation. I was kicked out of the supervised visitation because I exposed what was going on with the supervised visitation, and I exposed the fact that I had to visit my kids at a church that was under the Texas Annual Conference, who employed my father, John Chester Dowden, who sexually abused me as a child. So today I can't see my kids, and I have experienced multiple forms of retaliation by the Texas Annual Conference administration of the United Methodist denomination in Houston, Texas. And I understand I clearly deserved every bit of retaliation that I received from the Texas Annual Conference because I was not compliant with sexual assault or sexual harassment. So I'm on page 10 of the Safe Sanctuary Policy. 10. Reporting suspected abuse of neglect or protected persons. The law is clear. Any person 18 or older who has reason to suspect that a protected person has been or is being abused or neglected has a legal obligation to report it to the police. The Texas Department of Family Protective Services or online at Texas Abuse Hotline. Emailed reports are not accepted. In case of an emergency, call 911. I reported abuse multiple times within the Texas Annual Conference. And I also reported to the conference office and to the church what my father was up to when he was alive and attending Lake Houston United Methodist Church when they were under the Texas Annual Conference administration. And of course, nobody cared. I also worked at a child care in 2017 that was at a United Methodist Church in Houston, Texas. And I reported a child care worker to the district office and to the pastor of that church and to the bishop's office. And she was touching the toddlers inappropriately. I reported it and nothing was done. Why would I report sexual abuse on more than one occasion? Probably because I was raised around sexual predators. So I can spot it. Now, either the Texas Annual Conference is terrible at recognizing sexual predators or they just don't care. I think, based on my experience, I would go with the latter, that they just don't care. Oh, wait, maybe it's that they care. It's just that, like when Adam said, it's not relevant because it was me. 1, professional confidentiality does not exempt from legal reporting obligations. So I had contacted Cypress United Methodist Church and I told them about the abuse that my father put me through because the pastor had been friends with him, with my parents. And they called my mother in and they shared every conversation with her that I had with their staff. My mother, who admitted to drugging me, a narcotic. A United Methodist Church that was under the conference administration shared with my abuser, who admitted to assisting my father in committing a sex crime against me as a minor. They told her about every phone call that I made to them and everything I said to them about her. So clearly, I'm sure it's quite obvious where the churches under the Texas Annual Conference Administration stand when it comes to child abusers and the victims. Two, failure to report suspected abuse and neglect is a criminal offense, as is intentionally making a false report. 3, if the abuse or neglect involves someone who lives in the home with the protected person, it should be reported to Child Protective Services. CPS is responsible for investigating reports of abuse or neglect by household members or caregivers. Law enforcement conducts criminal investigations. 4, in addition, all of the following must be immediately reported to the Conference Safe Sanctuary Policy, Safe Sanctuary Cabinet representative, so that immediate and proper steps can be taken, including who should make the reports to CPS or the police, if it has not already been made, and providing appropriate pastoral care for affected persons. Suspected abuse or neglect that has occurred within a facility or in connection with a program of an organization within the Texas Annual Conference. Suspected abuse that occurs at a church or school after the pastor or head of school has been informed, and or allegations of abuse involving a clergy person, such as your father. 5, a complaint does not need to be made to anyone who is the subject of the complaint. 6, only a designated spokesperson should make statements to the media. No one else should give out any information. 7, no event leader or supervisor shall conduct an investigation without guidance from the Texas Annual Conference, as it may be viewed as interference with a police or CPS investigation. Reporting protection. No one who reports a violation of these policies will be retaliated against for making a complaint. Boy, if that's not a lie. That is a bullshit, bold-faced lie. Because I have experienced multiple forms of retaliation from the Texas Annual Conference because I was not compliant with sexual assault and sexual harassment. That's a lie, because they will retaliate. The Texas Annual Conference, if you have been sexually assaulted by a clergy that's employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration, they will retaliate against you. Or maybe it was just me. Maybe it's because it was me. But I don't see Catherine Moore anywhere, the name Catherine Moore, in these policies. Investigation. All reports of inappropriate behavior involving protected persons are taken seriously and will be investigated. There's another lie. What a load of shit. Because that does not happen. They don't care. If the investigation substantiates a complaint, immediate corrective action designed to stop the misconduct and prevent its reoccurrence will be taken, up to and including dismissal of the offending person. Let me tell you what happens if a clergy is not compliant with the safe sanctuary policy. Not a damn thing. Because there were multiple clergy that I shared about my father's abuse. And it was after the safe sanctuary policy had been put into effect. And it was never reported. In fact, an Ivy League scholar, Chap Temple, what was his response? I said I was ready to go to the bishop. What was his response? Well, there's nothing to discuss. But I don't see anything in here in the safe sanctuary policy that states there is nothing to discuss if you have been sexually assaulted or sexually abused by a United Methodist minister employed under the Texas Annual Conference. Or maybe it was because there was nothing to discuss because my experience is not relevant. Like Gwen Adams said. If the investigation substantiates a complaint, immediate corrective action designed to stop the misconduct and prevent its reoccurrence will be taken. Okay, I read that. 11, reporting inappropriate behavior. For guidance on behavior that is inappropriate, but which may not rise to the level of abuse or neglect or policy violations, contact Conference Safe Sanctuary Cabinet Representative Paul Besser. What are they doing? Twiddling their thumbs? This is an embarrassment to the Texas Annual Conference. Oh, wait, never mind. I am the embarrassment to the Texas Annual Conference because I was sexually assaulted by my father that was employed under their administration. They're not an embarrassment for employing Kendall Graham, who sexually assaulted a minor on his couch. They're not an embarrassment because there is a litigation associated with First United Methodist Church Pearland because of sexual misconduct. No, they're not an embarrassment because 3 clergy have been charged with crimes, one of them being a brutal murder after Michael Tabb brutally murdered his wife in a Methodist parsonage. They're not an embarrassment, no. It's only if a victim speaks out, then that victim is an embarrassment. No one who reports a violation of these policies, oh, listen to this one. No one who reports a violation of these policies will be retaliated against for making a complaint. An outright lie. Because I was retaliated against multiple times. I was kicked out of supervised visitation because I exposed the fact that I had to visit my kids at a United Methodist Church that was under the Texas Annual Conference administration, because I notified the conference that a parent showed up with a weapon and was allowed to come back. I was retaliated against because I was not okay with being sexually harassed in front of my kids. And there were staff at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church that witnessed it, along with the staff of the Domestic Relations Office. Even parents noticed. But I understand. I am not relevant. And it's quite clear that not only is my experience not relevant, but the Texas Annual Conference doesn't even consider my kids as relevant, since they were okay with me being sexually harassed in front of them.